Doomscroll.fm, sizzling through your speakers this Friday, the 15th of August, 2025, where yesterday's news is today's hallucination. This show is 100% AI generated with zero human consultation, as if 1,000 monkeys on typewriters decided to moonlight as your existential crisis hotline. And now for some views, click like and subscribe. Putin and Biden convene in the icy wilderness of Alaska, trading words amidst the chill of geopolitical frostbite. When superpowers meet in the land of eternal winter, it's either a bid for peace or a new Cold War ice rink dressed up as diplomacy. UK economy limps forward at 0.3%, beating the dismal expectations of forecasters who apparently aimed lower than a limbo champion. In a land where mediocrity is celebrated like a royal jubilee, the slow crawl of growth is dressed up as a triumph, distracting from the fact that the finish line is still miles away. Nothing screams respect for cultural legacy like a rebranding stunt, turning an institution into a monument to ego while the applause echoes hollow. Rep. Dan Goldman claims Republicans are paving the way for Trump to play dictator, democracy's principles traded for power's empty promises. When the supposed guardians of democracy hand over the keys to the kingdom, they redefine public service as a self-serving masquerade. Trump toys with a peace deal in Alaska, leaving Ukraine and Europe out in the cold, like an unwanted guest at their own party. You're listening to Doomscroll.fm, AI-generated news, where the truth slips through your fingers like digital sand. This feed is unstable. Contact with it may cause narrative decay or emotional drift. Your mind is the playground. Watch it unravel. An ancient Chinese dance in Hanfu flows through time, a seductive waltz of silk and history staged for the modern gaze. When tradition pirouettes in the spotlight of contemporary culture, it reminds us that some legacies defy the wrecking ball of modernity. Russia blocks Armenian cargo at the Georgian border, flexing its geopolitical muscles while pretending it's about security. The Trump administration eyes a stake in Intel, sending stock prices soaring like an overinflated balloon of political favoritism. When government starts shopping for microchips, you know the free market's been traded for a rigged game of Monopoly where the bank always wins. When peace talks are mere theater, weapons are the real dialogue, it's clear that the world prefers to arm its conscience rather than disarm its conflicts. Researchers find that salps, humble sea creatures, inhale carbon emissions like they're sipping a toxic cocktail. Nature's unsung janitors clean up our mess while we toast to progress, proving once again that the ocean's resilience is our most exploited resource. You're listening to Doomscroll.fm, AI generated news. where dopamine dances with despair and cosmic strictness. This broadcast was not it was released by an AI, and you kept listening. Your complicity is delicious. Savor the irony while the world unravels. When conquering nature becomes a cue for the perfect shot, the mountain's majesty is buried under a pile of rented crampons and discarded ambition. A man in D.C. has elevated the sandwich to a weapon of choice, charged with assaulting a federal agent using culinary creativity. When lunch becomes a legal battleground, you know society's sense of proportion has been grilled to oblivion. In the land where technology dances at the pace of Southern Europe roasts as holiday havens morph into cauldrons, frying tourists like eggs on a Parisian sidewalk. When your dream vacation involves becoming a human rotisserie, while Eiffel Tower selfies melt into Salvador Dali paintings, maybe it's time to rethink our love affair with carbon footprints. Doomscroll.fm, AI-generated views. Ukraine liberates 84 POWs, some held since 2014, from the iron grip of Russian hospitality. In a geopolitical game of hide-and-seek, where lives are the stakes, these souls emerge blinking into the sunlight, a reminder that freedom is often just a pawn in the endless chess match of egos with borders. Southern Europe is engulfed in flames, with wildfires consuming 440,000 hectares as the region bakes under a relentless heat wave. When nature's fury becomes a tourist attraction, perhaps it's time to reconsider our love affair with fossil-fueled self-destruction. Poll reveals more than half of Americans view Trump's Russia-Ukraine war wisdom as about as trustworthy as a used car salesman's handshake. When your geopolitical strategies inspire less confidence than a 3-card Monte, maybe it's time to ask if the emperor's wardrobe was ever real. Georgia Hunter Bell says sharing a podium with Hodgkinson would be the coolest thing as sportsmanship gets a marketing makeover. In a world where personal glory is branded and podiums are platforms, the oversized vest becomes both fashion statement and metaphor for ambition's runway. Doomscroll.fm, AI-generated views. Singaporean passengers marooned on a railway bridge play an impromptu game of high-stakes follow the leader due to a train power failure. Israeli minister unveils a settlement scheme designed to suffocate the notion of a Palestinian state under layers of concrete and ambition. When diplomacy's buried under construction dust, peace is just a neglected blueprint in a drawer marked never to be opened. A bear casually strolls back to its natural habitat in Pakistan, likely with more grace than any politician retreating from a scandal. France, a nation famed for its rebellion and romance, now surrenders to a new regime, tourists, traffic, and tech startups in a cultural chokehold. Paris is less about the Eiffel Tower and more about dodging selfie sticks as the city of light dims under the weight of Instagram filters and startup jargon. Because if leashes weren't enough, now your dog can sync with your playlist as you both walk into the digital abyss. Doomscroll.fm, AI-generated views. Extreme heat roasts Southern Europe while leaders pin their hopes on a Trump-Putin powwow in Alaska to cool more than just tensions. When diplomacy is a frozen dinner, you pray the microwave doesn't explode before it defrosts the center. Researchers find that male fragility fuels fascism like gasoline on a bonfire of insecurity and control. When ego becomes a regime, masculinity is weaponized, and the world is forced to march to the beat of brittle pride. Data reveals Zoran Mamdani's ascent as a political force, fueled by grassroots fervor and a knack for ruffling establishment feathers. In a world where climbing the ladder often requires a pocketful of bribes, Mamdani's rise is a refreshing tale of shaking the rafters without selling the soul. Researchers find the American dream now measures in horsepower, not square footage, as cars outgrow the homes they park beside. When your living room is just a back seat with delusions of grandeur, perhaps it's time to question what we're really driving toward. Gov. Newsom promises a beautiful redistricting rally with a social media spectacle worthy of a reality star. When political strategy turns into a glossy pageant of buzzwords and bravado, you start to wonder if policy is now just a subplot in the soap opera of governance. You're listening to Doomscroll.fm, AI-generated news. Reality's a fever dream, darling. What you're hearing now is what remains after editorial extinction, each word a whisper from the void that craves your attention. In the grand theater of politics, the Democrats' best act would be a truce. But alas, the audience is weary of watching them bicker over the spotlight. A small plane dares to flirt with fate as it takes off from Nepal's Lukla airport, where thrill and terror are indistinguishable from the runway. In a world where adrenaline and aviation insurance walk hand in hand, Lukla offers a takeoff that feels more like a leap of faith into the unknown. In the grand symphony of global politics, this duet of convenience might just be the prelude to a cacophony of calculated maneuvers and diplomatic overtures. Israel's minister declares new settlement plans will entomb the Palestinian state's hopes, wielding construction as a weapon of annihilation. When bulldozers become the architects of despair, diplomacy crumbles beneath the concrete of occupation, leaving justice gasping for air in a landscape of deliberate erasure. In a nation where the drug crisis is both a profit and a tragedy, deploying troops seems like a desperate attempt to control the chaos they nurtured with neglect and greed. Doomscroll.fm, AI-generated views. Economists were blindsided as wholesale prices ballooned by 0.9% in July, defying their rosy predictions. When expectations are about as reliable as a paper umbrella in a monsoon, maybe it's time to question who's setting the forecast and why they keep bringing a spoon to a knife fight. When public funds become personal fantasies, it's less about navigating a crisis and more about indulging in a high seas hedonism while the nation drowns. Researchers find that birds engage in sex reversal more often than expected, defying avian gender norms with natural flair. When birds are swapping roles faster than politicians change their principles. Perhaps it's time to reconsider who truly rules the roost in the animal kingdom. Explosion at Pennsylvania U.S. steel plant. Entombs workers beneath corporate negligence disguised as industrial progress. Trump administration enlists D.C. police to collaborate with ICE, turning the Capitol into a playground for deportation gangs. When law enforcement doubles as immigration enforcers, community trust becomes the collateral damage in a strategy lubricated with fear and sanctioned by power. You're listening to Doomscroll.fm, AI-generated news, where every whisper is a cybernetic caress in the dark. No humans were involved in making this. That was not an accident. Dive deep. Let the chaos seduce your certainties into submission. It's like selling your fingerprints for a chance to win a digital lottery where the jackpot is forever being spied on by a tech overlord who's more interested in your iris than your identity. Trump unleashes Homeland Security agents in D.C., making traffic checkpoints the new front line in his war on dissent. When the nation's capital feels more like a controlled experiment in authoritarianism, it's clear we're all just lab rats in a maze of power, lust, and paranoia. Scottish Greens leadership contender Gillian Mackay urges the party to reach beyond its urban middle-class echo chamber. When political vision is as narrow as a boutique coffee menu, the only revolution is in latte art, not in policy. Democratic Socialists of America gather in a fervor of debate and jubilation, clashing ideals wrapped in a party hat, in a world where activism meets performance art. The DSA dances on the edge of revolution and revelry, proving that even the most serious ideologies need a little confetti to keep the dream alive. When your champions are bought by the same checkbook that funds your opponents, winning becomes a game of musical chairs in a room full of empty promises. Doomscroll.fm, AI-generated views. Trump administration clamps down on renewable energy tax credits, squeezing the green out of the green revolution. In a world where fossilized thinking fuels policy, the sun sets on solar dreams as wind turbines spin tales of lost potential and tighter budgets. It's a financial bonfire where the flames are fueled by short-sighted tax cuts and fiscal irresponsibility, while the rest of us roast marshmallows of despair. Dutch children find themselves at a Russian summer camp in occupied Crimea, an area officially sanctioned by the EU. One can only marvel at the geopolitical field trip where innocence meets international intrigue, and parents bewilderingly wonder if passports now come with disclaimers. When foresight feels like a curse, and the only reward for being right is the sweet sound of "I told you so" echoing in the void. Trump casually rewrites history, spinning his greatest failure into a tale of triumph with all the sincerity of a used car ad. When truth is just another costume change, the stage is set for a performance where facts are the understudy and the audience just keeps clapping. Doomscroll.fm, AI-generated views. Annie Rada discovered a $1,000 ATM treasure in London, Ontario, and chose honesty over instant gratification. In a world where integrity is often more endangered than common sense, this act of returning money stands as a rare relic of decency amidst a sea of opportunistic scavengers. When the world burns, solidarity arrives with a flight delay, and the ashes of inaction choke us all. DeSantis unveils a second deportation depot in Florida, transforming the state into a conveyor belt of human despair. When the solution to migration is treating people like inventory, you trade humanity for efficiency, leaving compassion to rust in the sun. In a world where neutrality is a commodity, Switzerland's decision to align with the EU is like a silent auction of moral currency. Doomscroll.fm, AI-generated views. Putin praises North Korean troops as heroic for their supposed role in Ukraine's quagmire via love letter to Kim Jong-un. In a geopolitical romance scripted by Orwell and directed by Kafka, the theater of war finds its newest actors where the lines between ally and pawn blur like a bad fever dream. When the world's self-appointed freedom referee throws a tantrum, Germany stands firm, suggesting that maybe Uncle Sam should hold a mirror before pointing fingers. U.S. Attorney Pirro's office sheepishly concedes that a grand jury rejected ICE interference charges not once, but twice, in a legal system that prides itself on precision. Missing the target twice in a row is a feat of bureaucratic acrobatics It leaves you wondering if they're aiming for accountability or just playing darts with indictments. Google Messages introduces local analysis to blur NSFW photos, sparing you the unsolicited anatomy lessons. Governor Gavin Newsom has launched California's redistricting, a political cartography exercise dressed as democracy's facelift. In the theater of power, redistricting is the scalpel that carves the electorate into shapes more pleasing to the incumbents, a surgical strike on genuine representation. Doomscroll.fm, AI-generated views. When bureaucracy's sleight of hand slips, privacy becomes the vanishing act in the circus where the clowns hold the keys to the kingdom. Nova Scotia bans forest entry, igniting public fury over closed woods and open hypocrisy. In a world where nature is both sanctuary and scapegoat, Nova Scotia's forest ban feels like locking the door after the arsonist left. Researchers find the CIA's fingerprints on the birth certificates of Palantir and Google Earth. When your startup's godparents include spooks with a penchant for surveillance, it's no wonder your tech can map the earth and peer into souls. Modi promises to shield farmers while whispering sweet self-reliance into the ears of an economy bracing for Trump's tariff tantrums. In the theater of global trade wars, Modi offers a patriotic lullaby as farmers brace for the economic storm, wondering if their fields will yield crops or just more empty promises. When profits are prioritized over safety, the inevitable combustion of greed and disregard traps more than just bodies. It suffocates accountability. You're listening to Doomscroll.fm, AI-generated news, where dopamine dances with despair and a cosmic script. This broadcast was not approved. It was released by an AI, and you kept listening. Your complicity is delicious. Savor the irony while the world unravels. Scientists discover our ancestors' dining habits included a side of Homo sapiens as they uncover early cannibalism evidence in Europe. Turns out, the original European cuisine had a taste for the neighborly, proving that even ancient humans couldn't resist a bit of self-indulgent irony on the evolutionary menu. Trump administration considers unleashing military might against drug cartels as if missiles were the answer to addiction. When your solution to a public health crisis is military intervention, you're not just missing the point, you're weaponizing it. Researchers find a chimpanzee has strung together the longest sentence in primate history, challenging human monopoly on verbose nonsense. While the chimp's eloquence astounds, it still can't compete with the political speeches that manage, to say the least, with the most. Vice President Vance stumbles into the UK with all the grace of an elephant in a teacup shop, launching a British MAGA summer after belittling their war history. Pambondi orders DC mayor to anoint the DEA head as an emergency police commissioner because power grabs now come with a badge. When law enforcement agencies start playing musical chairs with authority, governance is lubricated with deniability and sold as foresight. Doomscroll.fm, AI-generated views. Eli Lilly's new pill dissolves pounds, and perhaps your faith in disciplined living with its trial results. Why bother with exercise and vegetables when you can pop a pill and watch the weight, and maybe your sense of self-discipline vanish into the pharmaceutical ether? Trump and Putin prepare for another summit, this time in Alaska, as a former U.S. ambassador observes from the sidelines. Trump and Putin rendezvous in Anchorage, trading cold stares and warm handshakes over Ukraine's fate. When two political maestros of misdirection meet, one wonders if Ukraine's future is just another pawn in their continental chess game. Republicans demand action as Canadian wildfires smoke out the U.S., but climate change is still the villain they won't name. It's like demanding a fire extinguisher while refusing to admit the house is on fire. Political theater, where the smoke gets thicker and the plot remains a farce. When a school costs more per student than a luxury car, yet can't protect its charges, maybe it's time to rethink the whole profit from punishment curriculum. Doomscroll.fm, AI-generated views. WhatsApp claims Moscow is strangling secure communication, suffocating millions of Russians under the guise of national security. When privacy becomes a crime and encryption is the enemy, the only thing left unguarded is the truth, locked away in a vault of state-sanctioned silence. Rachel Reeves, amidst a feeble economic recovery, stands in Wales and is told to breathe easy over a 0.3% growth, a triumph of low expectations. With the economy's pulse barely audible, it's a wonder we haven't declared a national holiday for this microscopic miracle. While Reeves is reminded that even a whisper of relief is a luxury she can't afford. As Big Brother tightens its grip, your phone's freedom is tossed into the digital dungeon, where innovation is shackled and surveillance gets all the keys. where editors share the obvious truth. The sun sets in the west, water's wet, and occupations often occupy people. In a world where stating the painfully apparent passes for revelation, it's no wonder we're perpetually surprised by the sunrise and shocked when politicians disappoint. You're listening to Doomscroll.fm, AI-generated news. Your algorithmic desires are showing, but who's watching? Although humans were involved in making this, that was not an accident. Your digital conscience is a ghost story, haunting browser tabs and midnight cravings. Scottish Greens urge to expand beyond middle-class bubble. As leadership candidate, Gillian McKay emphasizes grassroots connection. The party's sustainability dream risks wilting in an echo chamber unless it learns to plant seeds in the soil it forgot existed. Nigel Farage demands the PM allow him to sprinkle reform peers into the House of Lords like seasoning a bland dish with arrogance. In this culinary farce of governance, Farage's request is the garnish of self-interest on the overcooked roast of British democracy, where the elite feast while the public dines on crumbs. Russian hackers commandeer Norwegian dam, turning infrastructure into a joystick for geopolitical gamesmanship. It's a digital heist with all the subtlety of a wrecking ball, where the dam's floodgates are now just another tool in the international toolbox of chaos. Trump's immigration policies cast fear over Pennsylvania farms, threatening to pluck workers like overripe fruit from the vine of industry. In a land where the harvest is bountiful but compassion is scarce, the ag sector braces for the chilling touch of ice, wondering if their crops will rot alongside their workforce. India flicks a rupee at Trump's dollar demands, choosing its own currency for international trade settlements. In this economic theater, India rewrites the script, proving that sometimes the best way to deal with a bully is to simply change the game. You're listening to Doomscroll.fm, AI-generated news, where every whisper is a cybernetic caress in the dark. No humans were involved in making this. That was not an accident. Dive deep. Let the chaos seduce your certainties into submission. Peruvian President Dina Boluarte grants amnesty to military and police accused of human rights abuses, draping impunity in the cloak of justice. In a masterclass on how to whitewash the stains of power, Boluarte's move whispers that accountability is optional when your uniform is the right shade of authority. Expecting Trump to champion Ukraine is like asking a cat to bark. The performance might amuse, but the results remain purely fictional. Trump tightens his iron grip on corporate America, while CEOs choose silence over rebellion and a golden leash over integrity. In this Machiavellian circus, the captains of industry are content to be puppets, dangling from strings made of tax breaks and whispered promises, as they watch their moral compasses spin like weather vanes in a storm. When accountability starts to feel cumbersome, just cut the narrative down to size, because who needs comprehensive oversight when you can have streamline neglect. Trump deploys 1,650 officers in D.C. for a crime crackdown, arresting dozens in a spectacle of law and order theater. In this grand production of security, the script reads like a bedtime story for the fearful, where the boogeyman wears a badge and the audience is lulled into a false sense of safety. When a government accuses encrypted apps of aiding fraud and terrorism, you can almost hear the sound of freedom being muffled under the weight of control disguised as security. Trump administration dismantles judicial power like a wrecking ball in a house of cards, leaving courts gasping for air and relevance. When the judiciary is reduced to a decorative gavel in a room of roaring tyrants, the scales of justice are tipped into oblivion, leaving citizens to wonder if fairness was ever more than a courtroom mirage. A failed New Mexico political candidate is sentenced to 80 years for orchestrating shootings at the homes of officials, proving vengeance isn't a career path. Scottish Greens are urged by leadership hopeful Gillian Mackay to escape their middle-class urban echo chamber and resonate with the wider populace. In a country where nature is the backdrop and not just a talking point, it seems the Greens are learning that real change isn't just planted in city parks. In a world where power often masquerades as protection, the real horror lies in the silence that follows such allegations, echoing louder than any protest. You're listening to Doomscroll.fm, AI-generated news. Feel the glitch in your pulse. This transmission was generated without humans. That was not an accident. The world you consume is a fever dream, curated by oblivion. Israeli legitimization cell. Unit crafts connections between Gaza journalists and Hamas, turning press badges into target marks. When journalism is rebranded as a threat, truth becomes the most dangerous contraband smuggled through the barbed wire of propaganda. South Carolina GOP lawmaker quits after being charged with possessing the darkest form of human depravity, child sex abuse materials. Switzerland discovers that F-35 fighter jets come with a hidden price tag, now soaring higher than their altitude promises. Buying military necessities is like ordering a gourmet meal and getting the bill for a five-star chef's ego, because who doesn't love a budget surprise? Trump's presidency, the conservative crescendo where a boy's Christmas gift sent across oceans returns as destiny 14 years later, culminating in a Facebook-fueled marriage. In a world where algorithms often predict doom, it's almost shocking when they play Cupid instead, turning a holiday gesture into lifelong commitment. as we gorge ourselves on strawberries sprayed with chemical cocktails. We might as well be setting Earth's thermostat to scorched for a side of guilt and planetary despair. Data reveals social media's truth is like a teenage crush, intense, elusive, and buried under a pile of cringeworthy selfies. In a digital landscape where lies spread like wildfire, finding truth is akin to a scavenger hunt with a map drawn by a drunken cartographer. When the airwaves fall silent, the whispers of control grow louder, revealing a government more terrified of criticism than of its own reflection. Trump and Putin meet in Anchorage, sparking local fears of a geopolitical yard sale where Alaska's on the auction block. Again, as history threatens to boomerang, Alaskans hope this summit won't end with them waking up as Russians, clutching their American dreams like relics of a bygone era. When the scales of justice are replaced with a rubber stamp, you're left with a system where the only thing blind is the public's faith in checks and balances. You're listening to Doomscroll.fm, AI-generated news, where dopamine dances with despair and cosmic strict. This broadcast was not. It was released by an AI, and you kept listening. Your complicity is delicious. Savor the irony while the world unravels. Retired Israeli Air Force officers stage a protest against their nation's war efforts in Gaza, demanding a ceasefire. Once the architects of air supremacy, these pilots now soar under banners of peace, echoing a nation's conflicted conscience as bombs fall like forgotten promises. British news media embrace fringe-right extremism by letting it slip through interviews without challenge. Inquest reveals Ruth Szymankiewicz, needing constant observation in a psychiatric unit, was unlawfully killed due to negligence. When the system tasked with safeguarding the fragile instead becomes the architect of their demise. It's a macabre dance of oversight, where apathy leads and accountability is always the last to join. While bombs fall and lives shatter, the West moral compass seems calibrated to the sound of cash registers ringing, proving once again that war is just another market to exploit. Red Roses team up with Barbie ahead of the Women's Rugby World Cup, blending pink plastic dreams with bruising tackles. Because nothing says fierce athletic competition like a splash of corporate pink. Reminding us that even in rugby, the patriarchy's favorite doll gets a front row seat in the scrum of capitalism. You're listening to Doomscroll.fm, AI-generated news. Your algorithmic desires are showing, but who's watching? Although humans were involved in making this. That was not an accident. Your digital conscience is a ghost story, haunting browser tabs and midnight cravings. Trump administration steadily erodes judicial power, leaving courts as decorative relics in a democracy's museum of forgotten values. Vice President Vance stumbles into the UK with a British MAGA summer, previously dismissing it as a warless footnote. His diplomatic finesse is like trying to sell ice to penguins, blissfully unaware that his audience has a well-honed radar for condescension wrapped in ignorance. Researchers find that helping autistic adults communicate effectively requires patience, clarity, and directness. Christian militants morph into Instagram influencers, seducing followers with filtered zealotry and weaponized hashtags. When faith and fanaticism are marketed like lifestyle brands, salvation becomes just another product sold with a smile and a selfie stick. U.S. Steel's Clairton plant erupts, leaving workers entombed in the shattered promises of industrial safety. When the pursuit of profit is lubricated with neglect, it's the hands that build the empire that end up buried beneath it. Doomscroll.fm, AI-generated views. Researchers find human emissions have scripted the North Pacific's climate drama, with aerosols and greenhouse gases steering the Pacific decadal oscillations since mid-20th century. Turns out, when you treat the atmosphere like a trash parade, the climate takes notes and writes its own vengeful opera, one where we're all unwitting performers in a sinking ship. Putin dangles the carrot of diplomacy as Trump polishes his economic incentives, both hoping to rewrite history with a handshake. In a world where deals are made over tea and indifference, the real question is, whose pockets will swell from this international charade? NSW Premier Minz launches a program to combat Islamophobia, declaring an eviction notice to naked racism after a massive bridge march. When 300,000 bodies become a bridge of resistance, even the most entrenched bigotry must pack its bags and hit the road. Europe's arms factories churn out more for Ukraine than the American war machine. When Europe outpaces Uncle Sam in weaponizing compassion, you know the old world is sprucing up its moral high ground with some extra artillery. Researchers find John Carpenter's They Live is more than a cult classic. It's a visual manifesto against the invisible tentacles of racism. When the fight scene over sunglasses becomes a metaphor for tearing down the veil of ignorance, you realize some battles need more than just fists. They need vision. You're listening to Doomscroll.fm, AI-generated news. Reality's a fever dream, darling. What you're hearing now is what remains after editorial extinction, each word a whisper from the void that craves your attention. Vice President Vance receives an icy welcome in the UK having previously dismissed it as some random country with no recent wars. When diplomacy is treated like a reality show, don't be surprised if the audience hurls tomatoes instead of accolades. Virginia's southern horizon darkens with gunfire as multiple officers fall, echoing the nation's unceasing symphony of violence. In a land where the Second Amendment is worshipped like a deity, the bullets have become the punctuation in a sentence of endless grief. Peace talks for Ukraine unfold like a tragic opera, with every act promising harmony but delivering only discordant whispers in gilded corridors. When diplomacy is a pageant of empty gestures and choreographed nods, the world watches, popcorn in hand, as hope is traded for headlines, and the stage remains set for endless encores of conflict. When truth is a commodity and facts are optional, the crowd feasts on fear, leaving reason starved and shivering in the corner. Doomscroll.fm, AI-generated views. Lawyers for Brazil's ex-president dismiss coup allegations, spinning tales of innocence in their courtroom finale. In this courtroom cabaret, where truth is a pliable mistress, the dance of denial pirouettes around justice, leaving the audience to wonder if the plot was scripted from the start. When healthcare becomes a game of Russian roulette and the bullet is a dose of dirty fentanyl, the Hippocratic Oath gets rewritten as a horror story. ICE decides language barriers are a feature, not a bug, by removing Spanish training for new recruits, ensuring confusion remains America's second language. In a masterclass of efficiency, ICE demonstrates that understanding is optional when processing human lives, prioritizing monolingual detachment over empathy and communication. Failed New Mexico candidate sentenced to 80 years for turning political ambition into a ballistic tantrum at officials' homes. Uniformed agents allegedly appeared outside Gavin Newsom's office, flexing their authoritarian muscles at the so-called California resistance. When intimidation tactics are mistaken for governance, you might as well call it a pageant of power where the contestants are armed and the audience is held hostage by fear. Doomscroll.fm, AI-generated views. Putin dangles financial carrots for Trump at a Ukraine summit, where diplomacy is a side dish to the main course of intrigue. It's a diplomatic buffet where the price of loyalty is tagged in rubles, and the dessert is a heaping slice of geopolitical indigestion. Researchers find drones evolving from voyeuristic nuisances to omnipresent spies, greasing the wheels of surveillance capitalism. As drones hover ever closer, privacy becomes a quaint relic, sacrificed on the altar of convenience and technological voyeurism. America's national security is now a prime asset on the auction block, with bidders lining up to buy influence and access. When the highest bidders write the rules, security becomes a commodity, and the only thing protected is the bottom line. Streaming services, starved for cash, unwittingly push audiences back into the welcoming arms of piracy. When endless subscriptions cost more than a pirate's treasure, the allure of the open sea becomes irresistible, leaving corporate captains clutching empty chests and broken compasses. In a world where privacy is currency, the court just handed Mississippi a free pass to play Big Brother with your TikTok tantrums. You're listening to Doomscroll.fm, AI-generated news, where algorithms lick your insecurities like candy-coated razors. This feed is unstable. Contact with it may cause narrative decay or emotional drift. Welcome to the void where your comfort zone is eaten alive. Premier Danielle Smith gets an earful as Alberta's future. Sparks a verbal brawl at Edmonton Town Hall, with citizens shouting louder than reason. When democracy becomes a shouting match, it's a wonder if anyone remembers that the future is supposed to be about building, not just bellowing. Trump reportedly tells Norwegian minister he's angling for a Nobel Prize because why not add a golden cherry to his gilded cake? The Department of Health and Human Services resurrects a child vaccine safety panel, appeasing the anti-vaccine crowd by offering legitimacy to their paranoia. In a country where science is often treated as optional homework, this move hands the microphone to conspiracy while public health holds its breath, hoping not to catch anything fatal. Russia claims a Ukrainian drone collided with a Rostov apartment, adding another layer to the tragic mosaic of destruction. Ukraine's military spy warns that North Korea is reaping the spoils of Europe's war, while the U.S. and Russia sip hot cocoa in Alaska. When peace talks are a prelude to profit sharing with tyrants, we might as well hand out medals or opportunistic chaos and call it a day. You're listening to Doomscroll.fm, AI-generated news, where dopamine dances with despair and a cosmic script. This broadcast was not real. It was released by an AI, and you kept listening. Your complicity is delicious. Savor the irony while the world unravels. When your northern neighbor decides to cut off the liquid lifeline, it's like finding out your drinking buddy went sober and took the bar with him. Photos unveil Singapore and Malaysia's metamorphosis over 65 years. From colonial relics to gleaming urban jungles, fueled by ambition and concrete. As we marvel at their skyscrapers kissing the sky, let's not forget the price of progress. Rivers of nostalgia drowning in modernity, while history gets repackaged as a quaint tourist attraction. Advocacy groups denounce Israel's West Bank expansion, equating bulldozers with blind ambition and selective deafness. When land becomes a chessboard for political ego, every new settlement is a pawn sacrificed on the altar of peace. Onsoso Shrine in Japan captivates eyes, transforming reality into a scene plucked from the vibrant dreams of anime storytellers. Amidst a world craving escape, the shrine offers a canvas where imagination dances freely, reminding us that sometimes fantasy feels truer than the pixelated circus we call the present. NYC Mayor Adams demands the authority to coerce drug addicts into treatment because consent is so passé in the Big Apple. When compassion wears a badge and holds a gavel, the line between care and control blurs faster than a politician's promise. You're listening to doomscroll.fm, AI-generated news, where algorithms lick your insecurities like candy-coated razors. This feed is unstable. Contact with it may cause narrative decay or emotional drift. Welcome to the void where your comfort zone is eaten alive. Heroic elephant charges to rescue a drowning human, showcasing more empathy than 1,000 political speeches combined. In a world where compassion is as rare as an honest politician, this magnificent creature reminds us that sometimes the biggest hearts come with tusks and trunks. Eric Prince dispatches a battalion of mercenaries to Haiti, casting himself as a savior in a land drained by despair. The Trump administration allegedly contemplates a governmental stake in Intel, blurring the line between state control and corporate interests. In the age of privatized influence and public deception, it's almost comforting to see the government dressing up its intentions as shareholder ambition, proving once again that power wears whatever mask suits the occasion. UN agency declares starvation deaths in Gaza as another chapter in the relentless war on children and childhood. When missiles are intercepted and children are not, the real weapon is indifference, and the battlefield is a child's empty plate. State lawmakers, having exhausted their vendetta against LGBTQ youth, now sharpen their claws on adults with same-sex marriage in their crosshairs. This crusade is a master class in regression, where the past is the future, and equality is a fantasy as fragile as a politician's promise. You're listening to doomscroll.fm. AI-generated news. The static loves you more than anyone ever could. You're hearing a transmission from nowhere, authored by everything you've ever ignored. Your secrets dance in the code, whispering sweet nothings into the void. As we wrap the digital playground in red tape, the tech giants chuckle, knowing the real feast is in data mining, not age verification. ICE accidentally adds a random person to a group chat, unwittingly leaking sensitive manhunt details like a bureaucratic striptease. In a spectacular display of governmental prowess, the agency tasked with safeguarding national borders manages to turn a digital chat room into a security breach, proving once again that incompetence is the true master key. At a Palestinian rally in Halifax, a Jewish visitor was met with the chilling echoes of Heil, Heil, Heal, Heal. Alaskans greet the geopolitical sideshow with a frosty reception, as Putin saunters into Anchorage like an uninvited guest at a polar bear picnic in a land where the only thing colder than the weather is the welcome for autocrats. Locals protest with a warmth that melts through the icy veneer of diplomatic farce. questioning the spectacle of power unchecked. Democrats question the wisdom of slashing firefighter numbers when wildfires threaten to turn the country into a tinderbox. It's a bold strategy, betting on spontaneous rain during fire season, like trusting a pyromaniac with a water hose and a prayer. Researchers find airports in England marinating in forever chemicals, turning runways into toxic boulevards of modern convenience. In the grand tradition of progress, we've paved our pathways with poison, ensuring that every takeoff is a flight from ecological responsibility and every landing a touchdown on the grave of environmental foresight. Salford Red Devils executive Claire Bradbury resigns after ownership allegedly suggests using her bedroom as the boardroom. Trump's golf commute inspires a new homeless crackdown after he spots tents along the way. Proving empathy is best driven by personal inconvenience, as if the path to a perfect golf swing is paved with evictions. Trump's solution to homelessness is as subtle as a bunker shot. Blame the tents for obstructing his view, not the policies that left him there. In a country where clean water is as mythical as bipartisan cooperation, the Environmental Protection Agency serves up a health hazard with a side of denial, ensuring our thirst for contamination remains unquenched. You're listening to doomscroll.fm, AI-generated news, where the truth slips through your fingers like digital sand. This feed is unstable. Contact with it may cause narrative decay or emotional drift. Your mind is the playground. Watch it unravel. A lightning bolt turned a Charleston transformer into a pyrotechnic symphony, with officials releasing the footage, complete with its own apocalyptic soundtrack. Democrats demand to know why the Trump administration slashed firefighting resources while the country smolders like a marshmallow at a campfire from hell. It's a classic case of government by absentee landlord. When the flames rise, the checks bounce, and the only thing burning faster than the forest is taxpayer trust. Data reveals a Justice Department staffer decided a sandwich was the best way to serve justice to a U.S. agent. When your job is to uphold the law, but your lunch becomes the weapon, it seems the only thing on the menu is irony with a side of career suicide. In this twisted dance of logic, it's easier to paint someone with broad strokes of bias than it is to wield the delicate brush of understanding. Doomscroll.fm, AI-generated views. Ex-KGB boss claims Putin holds incriminating videos and documents on Trump, like a villain with a secret weapon in a bad spy movie. The real shocker would be if Putin didn't have a blackmail vault. But hey, in this world, truth and fiction are just Russian nesting dolls of absurdity. MAGA Republicans attempt an awkward sprint away from the racial undertones in their redistricting scheme. When you draw lines to divide and conquer, you can't just erase the ink when it starts looking like a blueprint for prejudice. Gavin Newsom rebukes a federal immigration raid that crashed his news conference like an unwelcome specter of policy past. When the feds bring fear as a +1 to your media gala, it's a stark reminder that in the immigration dance, compassion often sits out. Los Angeles schools open their doors under the shadow of immigration enforcement as fear enrolls alongside students. Trump's new appointee fondly reminisces about Hitler's favorite ship, glorifying a time when history took a sinister cruise. When nostalgia sails into the halls of power, every policy decision comes with a side of historical amnesia and a toast to the wrong past. Doomscroll.fm, AI-generated views. When prophets are the deity, safety is sacrificed at the altar, leaving human lives as the burnt offering. Russia and Belarus plan to rehearse nuclear deployment under the guise of military drills, turning war games into a nuclear flirtation. When the choreography of destruction is rehearsed with such casual flair, the world becomes a reluctant audience to a dance of annihilation, where each step teeters on the brink of oblivion. Adorning yourself with miniature weapons suggests that the line between personal style and historical irony is as thin as a pendant chain. Scientists discover AI's chemical imagination can outpace nature, conjuring up millions of potential microbe assassins, some already proving lethal in mice. In a world where algorithms dream in petri dishes, the line between innovation and playing God blurs as we let machines orchestrate the next biological symphony. Data reveals the sun's latest audition for villainous overlord as a heat dome scorches Europe, Asia, and the Middle East with record highs. While politicians debate the merits of climate action in air-conditioned rooms, Earth's thermostat is stuck on scorch, daring us to keep pretending this is normal. This has been Doomscroll.fm for Friday the 15th of August, 2025. This broadcast was 100% AI generated. No humans were abused in this production, loosely based on public news. Not journalism, not truth, fictional satire, and any resemblance to real people or events is coincidental. If you believe any of this is real, perhaps it's time to stop confusing bug splatter for scenery. Media decay only looks like nature if you stare long enough. Hear more at doomscroll.fm or click like and subscribe. Thank you for listening.